It was 3 a.m. at night. Vine's feet were ready to give up at this point. She was not ready to go back home. She couldn't even return without the money she had to pay daily. She had a job, but she was fired because one day she was extremely sick and had no energy to move. All those months of hard work went to waste. She had been roaming around the streets for the past 6 hours. The rest of the whole day, she tried her best to get a job somewhere. She applied in a lot of places, but all went in vain. For the past 2 hours, a very stupid idea started to disturb her. As much as she wanted to throw it away, but that seemed like the very last thing she could do. And even worse was when her eyes fell on a guy who was standing against the pavement. His back faced her as he leant against his heavy bike, which seemed pretty expensive to her. He had his leather jacket and kneecaps on as he was busy smoking. He looked like a young guy in his middle 20s. She gulped. She had no idea who he was or how dangerous he could be, but all she knew it can be worse than returning home without money. Putting on a persona, she brought out a confident aura and walked to him. She leaned beside him, and that was enough to gain his attention. Jungkook turned towards her, raising his brows, and exhaled out the smoke at a side. Wine, can I have a puff? Jungkook stared at her for a moment, but then he extended his cigarette and let her have it. Jungkook, looking for a company? He turned back to front, brushing a hand through his hair. Wine, maybe. Jungkook suddenly stood in front of her, caging her in between him and the bike. He put his hands on the bike on either side of her, and leaned down near her face. Wine's breath hissed, and she tried her best not to be taken aback. This is what she was here for after all. Jungkook, whatever is forcing you shouldn't be bigger than this. Wine, what do you mean? Jungkook, your whole body is screaming at you to turn away. It's so obvious you have never done that before. So whatever it is, tell me. Wine, if you don't want it, then move away. He chuckled, head thrown down, and that move was hot enough to send shivers down her spine. It was so obvious the man screamed hotness head to toe. Jungkook pulled away, grabbing his helmet and made her wear it. Jungkook, get on. She did after he got on himself. He pulled her forward, wrapping her arms around his torso. Jungkook, what's your name? I'm Jungkook. Wine. She held him tightly, being on such ride for the first time. Jungkook started the bike, and the speed was quite fast. To start for her beginner self, but she didn't complain. Jungkook, give me your address. Wine, I am not going home. Jungkook, you're not going elsewhere either, so give me the address quietly. Wine, you have no idea what happens when I get home. Just put me down here. Jungkook, how much was it? Tell me how much you need for whatever you are ready to sell yourself. Jungkook slowed down the pace. She felt the breeze blowing past her. It was the hour of the night where roads were empty. and the sky was pitch black. It was the most peaceful experience she felt after a long time. Wine. I have to pay my uncle money every night I return home. He is abusive and won't let me in. Then he goes ahead and say he will sell me off to his old alcoholic friends. That fat ass will do anything if it gets him money. She didn't know why she was sharing this, but she felt so comfortable at that moment. She took off the helmet and rested her head against his back, losing herself in that moment. Jungkook stayed quiet and let her enjoy it. He might be rich, but he had been where she was. He knew the struggles of being a broke, jobless person. Jungkook, I will lend you the money. Your address. She agreed quietly. It was his choice after all, and it was probably better than selling her body without her consent. She gave him the address and told him the money she needed. She didn't tell an extra amount, not wanting to take advantage of the person who was already helpful. Once Jungkook reached her home, she got down. The peaceful hour long gone when her eyes fell on the so called terrifying home of hers. Jungkook handed her some cash and a check where he asked her to keep for herself. Jungkook, give me your phone. She did and he typed down his number in there. Wine, I'll return you the money. Jungkook, I don't want the money, Wine. I have lots of it, but I would like you to contact me sometime. She looked down at her phone and saved the number before it would get lost. She didn't know how to even thank him for this. Being in such harsh condition, she never experienced a help from anyone before. Jungkook took the check back from her and put it in the inside pocket of her jacket and zipped it up for her. Jungkook, keep it hidden and just tell me if you need more. Now go. Ryan suddenly hugged him. It was a short one. He could tell she was embarrassed by the way how she ran inside afterwards, without looking back at him once. Ryan entered the home and found her uncle doing his work, drinking alcohol while munching on uncooked ramen. He stood up as soon as his eyes fell on her. Uncle, where the hell were you? Coming back at this hour, where were you whoring around? Where is my money? Without wasting a beat, he marched towards her with a raised hand to beat her, but she took out the money, giving it to him. It was more than what she gave him daily, and seeing that he calmed down, snatching it from her hand. Uncle, that's a lot. Where did you get it from? Why? I got a new job. That's why I got late. She went to her room, not wasting another second there, and took a seat on her bed. Taking out her cell phone, she stared at his phone number and remembered the little moments she spent with him. Ryan, why were you so nice with me? No one. After my parents, no one understood me. A few days passed by. Ryan got a new job at the car wash. Her uncle found out about the check and forcefully took it from her too. It was her only hope, which was once again taken away from her. The new job was hard. It took strength and took her some days to get used to it. She had to fix a workout routine in her tight schedule only for her job. It was late at night when she was at the car wash. The other employees, including even the owner, left by now. She knew they took an advantage of her most of the time because they knew how desperately she needed the job, always giving her more work and keeping her there whole day, even at nights. She just got done with that one last score that was left on her list for tonight. Taking a seat on the pavement while the hose was still in her hand, she lit up a cigarette. Each part of her body screamed in pain and tiredness. She inhaled in the smoke while she stared at the car she just washed. It was an exotic car, probably costing more than her whole self. Most of the cars that came there were really expensive, and she wondered, people really live that kind of life. She threw her head down. A person came, she could hear the footsteps, following by the sound of the car door opening. It had to be his car, otherwise, they had special security systems to be unlocked with a handprint. Why is that? I always find you in your most miserable state. She recognized the voice. It was that one person whom she will never forget. Ryan. Jungkook. He closed the door, stepping away from his car, and walked to her. Jungkook, do you work here? Ryan. Yeah, I just got this 2 weeks ago. Jungkook, what about the check I gave you? Ryan, uncle took it. Her shoulders fell disappointedly, and Jungkook wondered just how much she was bearing alone in this world. He took a seat beside her on the pavement. His eyes took in her features as she kept looking down at the ground. Jungkook, why do you have to give him the money? Ryan, it's a long story. She felt his fingers brushing through her hair. She might be dramatic right now, but just a slight touch of relief made her want to cry out. How long was it someone ever cared for her or asked how she was doing? Jungkook, I have all the time in this world. Holding her hand, he brought the cigarette to his lips, inhaling it in. Wine, I'll tell you. Some other day. If we get to meet again, I'll tell you then. Jungkook, look at me. He held her chin, making her face him. Jungkook, I'm going to meet you for as many times as you want, and for as many times as I want. So you better be prepared for it. Give me a call right now. I need your number. She didn't text him before. She didn't want him to think she was using him for money, even if that's exactly what she did the first time. She called him once, and so he received her number. He held her arm and pulled her up, taking the cigarette from her. She winced at the slightest force, and he tried to be even more gentle than he was. Dragging her to his car, he moved her inside without asking her, because he knew so well this is what she needed, and he was going to give it to her. Ryan, are you going to take me home again? She asked when he got inside too. Jungkook, no, we are going somewhere else. And tell me you have to return home and give your uncle money, and I will take care of him myself. She chuckled, and Jungkook frowned. Was it the sense of protection? God, she was so unfamiliar to it. Ryan, you're getting me excited. To be continued.